Okay, let's go via Google Hangout outside of St. Louis and to bring in some folks who can give us some perspective from outside of St. Louis. Brad was a little foreshadowing here just a little bit ago when we heard Brad Feld. Your name was mentioned, Brad, author of several books on this topic, including one, Startup Communities, Building an Entrepreneurial Ecosystem in Your City. So let's get right down to it. Can you build an ecosystem, or does it just have to happen naturally, like the river was the reason for St. Louis in the first place? Or can you actually manufacture this kind of ecosystem?
You can build a startup community, and in fact, I think every city in the world needs a startup community. Building it is a straightforward thing at one level and very complex at another. One of the things, I'm from Boulder, Colorado, and one of the things that I've learned as I've reflected on what's happened in Boulder in the last almost 20 years is that the startup community has to be led by entrepreneurs. And one of the things that a lot of people in cities get confused about is the idea that the city or this abstract thing can actually be the thing that creates it, when in fact the startup community is driven by these entrepreneurs.
Also on the Hangout with us is Ray Leach, the CEO of Jumpstart. Ray, Jumpstart, jump in on that. Do you agree? Give us your take.
Well, the private sector certainly is a huge player and the principal player in terms of developing the vision and building a strategy to execute. But our experience in Ohio, I live in Cleveland and been working for this organization called Jumpstart for the last 8 years. One of the things that we have done is been able to feed the private sector, the leadership from the private sector, with nonprofits and university initiatives and other things that are going on in the traditional economic development ecosystem, as well as the emerging things that have happened around innovation and entrepreneurship that are new to places like Cleveland, to really fuel the vision and start to generate or accelerate outcomes for these really young companies sooner, better, faster. So an idea that a private sector or private envisioned strategy, then fueled by all the other actors in the community. There are roles to play for everyone in the community, but at the same time, you really need to have that private sector vision and experience to catalyze and to assure that it's going to continue to move forward in a way that's meaningful.
I'll open it up to both of you. Go ahead, Brad.
Ray used a very important word, which was feed the startup community. I separate the constituents of a startup community into two categories, leaders and feeders. The leaders have to be entrepreneurs. The feeders are everyone else. The university, academia, government, big companies, venture capitalists like myself. All of those feeders play important roles, and individual members of feeder organizations can play leadership roles. But in the absence of a critical mass of entrepreneurs playing leadership roles, nothing will happen over a long period of time.
What else is going on in cities similar to ours here in St. Louis, maybe in size or in region, that is working?
Well, you see some phenomenal things happening throughout the Midwest. Kansas City is a great example of a city that has great startup community growing right now. Des Moines is another example where there's a group of entrepreneurs working with a lot of the feeder organizations to actually accelerate a whole bunch of different things in that community. And what you see are common threads, which is a set of companies that get started, a set of entrepreneurs who build a network with each other, lots of the organizations around them, again, whether it be university or government or the nonprofit supporting entrepreneurship, all amplifying their activities around this network that is the startup community. And the powerful thing that's in common of all these cities is that there isn't one organization trying to control it. Instead of a top-down hierarchy where there's a president of the St. Louis startup community and a vice president of membership and a vice president of education, that's not how it works. It's just this messy network where there's lots of nodes on the network that are connected together. And all of the leaders in their organizations and the feeders in their organizations, when they connect together, they really amplify and accelerate what's happening in the startup community.
Ray, anything you see that we can emulate in St. Louis, or is that a wrong question to ask, to try to emulate another city in this arena?
No, I don't think that's the wrong question to ask, or at least to consider. There's certainly best practices that are relevant for region to region or community to community. At the same time, there's different assets and different geographies that one can build upon. give you a quick little story of Cleveland about 10 years ago. So if you looked at the largest 61 regions of the United States, Northeast Ohio, 4.5 million people, was the worst performing entrepreneurial community, according to Entrepreneur Magazine, for almost 12 years in a row. And so what happened at the time is entrepreneurs from the private sector and leadership from the public and institutional and government sector came together to say, hey, we need to build a collaborative, collective strategy that will dramatically change the fact that we're kind of dead last. Cleveland, just like St. Louis, in many ways has faced this huge global transition, or in terms of economic challenge, from manufacturing to more innovation. And just to give you a sense of what's happened, in 2004, when my organization was first founded, there was 5 pre-seed deals done in the region of Northeast Ohio, and last year in 2012 there was 67 seed deals done, and about $250 million of private capital invested in Series A companies in a place like Cleveland. So there's best practices and activities that we have learned actually from other communities, places like Pittsburgh and other places that have been in this business now for 30 years of accelerating these kinds of companies. And St. Louis and other communities can certainly learn from those other places, and as well as best practices like from Brad's book. And I guess one of the other things I'd mention is every region is working on this now. So this is a national, if not a global, competition.
Well, I was just going to cut you off because we have just a couple of seconds in the segment left, but the word region has popped up. How does this impact help the entire region if we're successful? Or will it?
Well, it certainly should. I mean, in our case, we are definitely oriented around a much larger geography than just a single city or a single county. And that's basically because there's a broad set of assets that can be leveraged to assist and accelerate entrepreneurs. And in a larger geography, if you can leverage those effectively and smartly, you should be able to generate greater benefits more quickly.
We'll have to leave it.